And welcome back, one and all. This is the X Zone. I am Rob O'Connell. My guest this hour is Nomar Slevik. We're talking to Nomar about his new book, Otherworldly Encounters, that is published by our good friends at Llewellyn Worldwide. Now, if you'd like more information on Nomar, or maybe you have a story that you would like to relate to him, whether you live in the beautiful state of Maine or not, visit him on Facebook at Nomar Slevik Author. First of all, Nomar, thank you so much for coming on the show. Great pleasure talking to you. Congratulations on a book well done. You're one of the very few authors that I've had on the show who actually goes out there and does the research.
That sounds crazy to me, but thank you.
In your opinion, based on all the research that you've done, your own experiences, why is it only certain people can experience a paranormal sighting of a monster or a UFO or a Bigfoot, and yet the person standing right beside them, or the people standing right beside them, can't see it? Any ideas or theories on that?
Really, not really. I mean, anything in all of this stuff is just theory. And I don't believe that there's really any experts in the field. I do feel as though some researchers can be expert on cases, because they've decided to hold on to a case, their whole life, and that's been their life's work, and that's great and everything. And so you're an expert on Roswell or whatever. And so, I would say Stan Gordon's an expert of the Chestnut Hill or the Chestnut Ridge area. But when it comes to stuff like this, asking my opinion, that's all it is. It's opinion, theory, and why someone sees something and someone else doesn't. Maybe they just didn't look quick enough. Or maybe it has to go back to that paranormal umbrella where everything is interrelated, and for some reason we can only see it sometimes. And maybe that other person who didn't see it could see it if the scenario was slightly different. I don't know if that makes sense, but who knows what's happening. But we're seeing these brief glimpses of things, and is that a parallel universe, where there's just a quick bleed over, and that's what we're seeing? Or are these interdimensional beings, and some people are quote unquote attuned to it or not? I don't know. But like you were saying, someone sees it, someone doesn't see it. That does happen super often. So it seems like maybe there's something to it along those lines that I was just talking about,
Yeah, it is strange, and there are so many questions out there. One of the questions that I like asking UFO researchers like yourself is, do you think disclosure is imminent? And do you think that the governments of the world are suppressing the information that they may have on the UFO phenomenon?
The way I currently think, because my opinion changes with the wind.
Hey, mine too.
I don't think disclosure in the way that ufologists want to see it is ever going to happen. Where the government's coming out and be like, hey, y'all were right. It's real. Like an Independence Day or something. They're coming. Crap, it's real. What was the other part of that question? I'm sorry, I got caught up in Independence Day.
Yeah, so did I. Actually, no, the question was, let me rephrase the question, and let's use this analogy. Seeing what has been happening in Washington with the Kavanaugh nomination.
Oh boy.
Okay. Can you just imagine the Democrats and the Republicans discussing whether or not the disclosure should happen? And I wonder what the FBI would do then, if anybody would say, well, we need to call in the FBI to see to do the investigations. Why do you think there are those people out there who really believe that the government is suppressing information?
Yeah, well, I think it's been proven that the government has suppressed information. To our knowledge, since 1969, Project Blue Book has been closed. They no longer are interested in studying UFOs in any way, despite still getting calls and things like that. And then all of a sudden, it's admitted that from 2007 to 2012, they were in fact still studying UFOs. So what happened between 69 and 2007? What happened between 2012 and right now? I'm sure there's just something else that's being suppressed right now, So there's already been an admission of suppression, and I'm sure it continues to this day on a level that is probably pretty scary.
Do we really need to know what the truth is about UFOs? And if we do, why?
Yes. Not sure why, yes, but
Okay.
yes. And I think it's important because maybe that helps us with humanity, to we're not the center of everything. We're not the dominant species. We're not alone in this world. The universe is huge. I mean, it's so arrogant to think that we're alone and nothing is more advanced than us. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
and to me, that's, I don't know. It's kind of sad. Maybe it's a little bit wishful thinking or something. I don't know, but I do believe that aliens are real, and I do hope they're coming here. But have they been coming here decade after decade just to study us and abduct us and probe us? That seems a little off to me. Maybe the first 10 years, okay, I can see that. But why are they still coming if that's a thing? You know what I mean?
Exactly. But you just brought up a wonderful argument for reverse engineering.
Sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's where colonoscopies come from. Yeah. Take me to your podiatrist. Take me to your proctologist. I'm not going to touch that damn finger unless you've got gloves on it, mister.
Oh, Rob.
Let me ask you this. Is it possible that when people see a UFO or have a UFO experience, they're actually witnessing a time displacement? That what we believe are UFOs from extraterrestrial galaxies or faraway galaxies or universes are actually from our future that travel back in time to, for some reason or other, I haven't figured that one out yet, but is it possible time travel is involved?
I think so. Who knows the way time travel could work or does work, and there have been some maybe not leaps, but little tiny baby steps into making that a bit more of a reality. But who knows? Or maybe it's a different plane of existence, and there's all these multiple universes, and time is irrelevant at that point, and they're really just able to kind of step in, be like, oh wow, look at this, and then step back, But yeah, I think that's totally possible, and I have sat up at nights thinking about that possible theory. There's actually a story from, the 50s. I haven't read this story in a long time, so I'll probably butcher some of this. You got some really smart guys listening. I apologize right now. But in the 50s, there was some sort of sighting with this kid, and he was, walking down a dirt road or whatever, or was walking home, and he sees this UFO. And I believe he described it as this like silver disc, and it was very low. I mean, we're talking like 30 feet, 40, 50 feet in the air, something like that. And there was this like completely glass dome over it. And he saw like a guy, like a human in it, working the controls and stuff like that. He might have even had, I forget the story in full here, but he might have even had like a USA patch or some sort of military patch or something like that. But it looked like he was wearing a jumpsuit of some sort and was, paying the kid no mind. And then he finally realized that the kid noticed him and it was like, whoa, and, flew away. So was that experimental? Was that time travel? And he's like, oh boy, I dipped into the 50s for a second, my bad, and went back to wherever he came from, But interesting story, and that's not the only one. There's hundreds, thousands of them. There's the another story about a gentleman who was flying over I believe a British military base, and when he flew over one time, it looked one way. When he flew over another time, everything looked different. They were wearing different colors on the uniforms. The planes had different colors, and turns out like 10 years later, those are the colors they ended up taking on. So there was some sort of rip in time that he believes happened, so.
Well, there are also a lot of stories throughout the Bermuda Triangle about rips in times and time travel and time-space distortions. What are your final thoughts for the members of the Exo Nation tonight listening to you?
Well, let's see here. I think, I don't know, I guess to tie it all up, all of my research, investigations, personal experiences, all that stuff, I actually think it sheds no light on what UFOs and aliens might be. But what sticks out to me is the people and how profoundly they seem to be affected by their encounters. And you can see it in their eyes and hear it in their voices. And it's heartbreaking in some cases, and it's fascinating in others. And it affects me sometimes after talking with them. And to be able to document someone's story, to help them not feel like they're crazy, to be just kind, I think is just a good thing, you know? And I hope that some people, you don't have to believe everything just because you're into UFOs and stuff, but to have a non-judgmental ear, I think is very important. It helps people, you know?
Once again, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Nomar, we'll have to have you back on in the future, but let our listeners know how they can find out more about you and where they can get their very own copy of Otherworldly Encounters.
Absolutely. Llewellyn Worldwide Publishing has a huge distribution arm. So anywhere you get your books, you can get a copy of my book, Otherworldly Encounters. You can even order it off Target and Walmart. One place I do like to promote, I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I just think it's cool. It's called indiebound.org, INDIE bound.org. It's a search engine for mom and pop bookstores. You go there, you type in your zip code. You can then, once it loads, you type in a book. And it shows you which mom and pop stores in your area have it. And if they don't have it, because of Llewellyn and who they are, they can order it from them. So that's pretty cool. Also, I have a podcast of my own. It's called I Want to Believe, and you can hear that anywhere you get your podcasts, iTunes, all that stuff.
I hate to do this. No, I hate to do this, but we've just run out of time. So, Nomar, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a great pleasure. And X Zone Nation, for more information on Nomar Slevik, visit him online at facebook.com/Nomar Slevik author. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Nomar Slevik is our guest. He is the author of Otherworldly Encounters on Facebook. Nomar Slevik, author. That's Nomar Slevik, author. I understand that you have a theory or a hypothesis on the creation of crop circles.
Well, I don't know if it's really a theory. You know, you have thoughts, and thoughts are just what they are. You know, but I certainly think that it's possible that that extraterrestrials are involved with making them. I definitely do not think that all crop circles are man-made. I think that's ridiculous. I definitely think a lot of them are, though. But I mean, that's really all it is, though. It's nothing earth-shaking at all.
Well, you never know unless you ask, right?
That's true.
Okay, in your book, Otherworldly Encounters, you covered UFOs. What else did you cover in your book?
A bunch of different things, but yeah, there's a story of a Mothman-like sighting that happened in Camden, Maine.
Mm-hmm.
And Camden, Maine is a small little coastal town in eastern Maine. And in 2001, October of 2001, there was a gentleman who saw something pretty weird over there. And I don't know if you're anything like me, but I'm a huge fanboy of all things paranormal. You know, I watch a lot of television shows that are like a guilty pleasure. I'm a huge fan of horror movies. You know, the more supernatural, the better. And I'm also a big fan of Mothman. So while I was writing the book, I was thinking, man, I wonder if there's ever been a Mothman sighting in Maine. Mm-hmm. No one's ever come to me. So I just Googled Mothman, Maine, and to see if anything came up. And something came up. I was like, what? And all I kept seeing was this headline, Mothman-like creature spotted in Camden, Maine. And I kept seeing that, but there was never anything linked to a full story of it. So I have a fellow author and friend and researcher. Her name's Michelle Solier, and she was actually able to track down a name for me. So I looked the guy up on Facebook, and after numerous attempts with people with the same name, which was a bit awkward sometimes, I found the guy, and he was willing to talk about the encounter. So this happened again in 2001, almost 35 years to the month.
Wow.
of the original Mothman sightings in Point Pleasant. So I thought that was fairly synchronistic, you know. And the witness does prefer to remain anonymous. I wrote that in the book, so I gave him an alias of Robert Osborne. And he was 17 at the time, and he was walking home early one evening. It was probably 6 p.m. or so. And he was walking on Washington Street towards his apartment building. And Washington Street starts right at downtown Camden, Maine, and it goes all the way and for miles into the town of Hope, Maine. And he lived just about a mile from downtown Camden. So as he's walking, he's hearing this chirping, squeaking type of sound, and he thinks it's a mouse, but it's kind of loud, so it must really be underfoot, and he's looking down, not wanting to step on it. While he's looking down, he sees this shadow, a large shadow, on the pavement go by, and he knows that it's something above him, so he immediately looks up. And when he looks up, he sees this odd humanoid looking thing with a huge wingspan fly over him, and it's making that sound. He said the body was about 4.5 feet long with these large bat-like translucent wings. He said it flew right up over the apartment building that his parents lived in. And as it did it, he said, he got a good measurement of the wingspan, because it said it went from one side of the eaves to the other side of the eaves of the building. And when I was down there and checking it out, that measures about 25 feet in length. So you're talking Cessna type size wingspan, that's huge. So he said it, flew off into this marshy area behind the building. The marshy area is less than a quarter mile behind the building. And he talked to his friends and family about it, and it's not like they didn't believe him, but they're like, you probably saw something else, man. Like, and, like a turkey vulture, sandhill crane or something, both of which can be found in the area. But he was like, no. This was weirder than that.
He knew the difference.
Yeah. So after this, he started having these reoccurring dreams. And he said that he would find himself at that same spot on Washington Street. And when he would look up this time, he would see a UFO as large as a house, and that it would roar to life and take off. So, being a researcher, I'm like, oh, okay, well, was that a dream, or could it have been a memory? And he's like, that's funny that you asked that. I tell people it was a dream, that goes back to the reservation of Mainers maybe, but I tell people that it's a dream, but I really think it was a memory. Well, now you've got some more synchronistic aspects with the original Mothman sighting, where you're having some concurrent themes there. Mothman, a weird creature being sighted along with the UFOs. So kind of interesting,
Do you think there is a natural connection between these flying unknowns that seem to have some sort of life form of its own to the connection of a UFO sighting?
I don't know how specific it gets, but I think there's some sort of connection, maybe under this whole umbrella of the paranormal, Sasquatch, dogmen, even over demons, some specific cases, UFOs, hauntings, that maybe it's all interconnected somehow, or, I don't know how. I don't even have theories on how, but there seems to be more and more cases popping up where there's multiple genres, if you will, of the paranormal happening at the same time, almost a convergence, if you will, and Stan Gordon's done a ton of that work in the Chestnut Hill area in Pennsylvania, where there's been a lot of UFO activity and Sasquatch sightings, things like that. So I personally think there's some sort of connection, but I haven't really developed any theories. I'm just too busy collecting the stories and trying to make sense of them at the time, you know what I mean? But,
now, the state of Maine has a lot of wooded areas. Have you had any experiences, or have you done any investigations into the Bigfoot phenomenon?
I haven't, but there's kind of a reason for that. Lauren Coleman, cryptozoologist, lives in my home state, and we know each other. We're friendly. I wouldn't say, I don't know him as if he's my best friend or anything. But he and this other woman I was telling you about, Michelle Soyer, a couple of years ago, they decided to start putting together Sasquatch stories from Maine to put out a book for, Bigfoot in Maine. And so anytime I came across an encounter, even if a witness emailed me directly, I would point them to those guys, to Lauren and Michelle, so they could document and interview them for their own research, So I haven't delved into it just because I'm trying to help a fellow researcher,
Not to mention the fact that you're a nice guy.
Sure, we can go with that too.
Okay. The check's in the mail, right?
Yeah.
Listen, during your investigation into your book, Otherworldly Encounters, did you find any hard evidence pertaining to any aspect of the paranormal? For example, did you find any evidence to prove that monsters actually do exist?
Any proof?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I know that might sound disappointing, but honestly, it's encouraging. And the reason it's encouraging is because any witness I talk to, any story that I read, anything that I sink my teeth into research-wise, what ends up ultimately happening, if I don't dismiss it to begin with, what ends up happening, what always ends up happening, is I have more questions than answers. So no, I don't have proof, but I keep finding this trail, all these breadcrumbs, or maybe more accurately, that puzzle I was talking to you about. And there's a piece here and there's a piece there. And again, I can almost make out what it is. I can almost see what it is. But boy, there's some key pieces that I need that I don't have yet, and I wish I did, to make it more complete. I mean, I've talked to witnesses who claim to have seen alien beings, or to have seen a dogman, or to have seen this or that. But as far as proof goes, there's been nothing that I could call proof of any kind. I'm taking the word of the people.
But how do we explain that in today's society with so much technology at our disposal that, just take that area that you were talking about before, where there are thousands of sightings
Yeah.
over a year, and yet with all those sightings, where's the photo that cannot be debunked, or the radar trackings, or with an amount of sightings that number, how come it's not being covered in the mainstream news? Like, something's going on, and I don't know if it's the people who are not seeing or the media who is just so tired about it they don't want to report it anymore.
Well, I think the media is still reporting on it, but it's still a bit of the fluff story, during October, things like that.
Sure.
But there are other news agencies. Larry King always took it seriously and would have James Fox on and a bunch of these other guys on, to seriously talk about the UFO phenomenon. Not to mention, Elizondo has been all over the news everywhere, and everybody wants to talk to him. And there have been great pictures and great videos and radar trackings and all this stuff. But anytime you show that to a skeptic, they don't believe it. That could be anything. That could be this. That could be that.
But there's more to life than skepticism, and there are more than skeptics who the people show these photos to. And yet, I've been doing this show for 29 years, and over the last 29 years, nothing has changed when it comes to ufology. Absolutely nothing.
You're absolutely right. I have seen some pretty amazing pictures. There's I provide information in my book on how to Google image search some of these pictures that I don't have permission to print in the book. And you can see some pretty cool pictures, but can you look at it and say that's an extraterrestrial craft? No.
That's where the difference is. Stand by. You and I have to take our final break, and X-Zone Nation, Nomar Slevik and I will return on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
From our broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond, you're watching the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Den.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God.
It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Exonation, Nomar Slevik is our special guest, and we're talking about Nomar's new book entitled Otherworldly Encounters. And for more information about Nomar, visit his Facebook page /Nomar Slevik author. And his new book is published by our good friends at Llewellyn Publishing Worldwide. All right, so the first encounter, I can understand why you were scratching your head. That would get me to scratch my head as well. What was the second one?
Well, the second one was actually just last year, and it was at Loring Air Force Base up in northern Maine. Mm-hmm. And there had been some pretty significant encounters there, one involving some beings from the mid-'60s, and then over the course of 3 days in 1975, there were also some encounters. So I decided for research with the book that I was going to go up there and just, go on site overnight and see if I could see anything. So in April of last year, I drove up to northern Maine. It's about 3 hours, maybe 3.5 hours from Bangor. And when I got up to that area, I stopped in at the local PD just to let them know what I'm doing. I want to keep everything above board. And they're like, all right, weirdo, go do your thing. It's all good. They couldn't care less. They just wanted me to be careful. So anyways, I get on base during the day. I'm kind of, I want to get my bearings, and the place is massive. I mean, this is an abandoned Air Force base or a closed Air Force base.
Well, wasn't that where one of the strike forces of the B-52s were stationed?
Absolutely, yeah. It was. And this base was opened in 1947, so that's an interesting year. And then it closed in 1994. So what's left, there's some businesses on the peripheral of the base. There's a call center, a museum, some stores, some things like that. But the crux of the actual base is just all left to really rot. So it would be the perfect setting for The Walking Dead. There's weeds growing up in the roadways. There's a housing area that's fallen apart. There are these massive hangars bleeding rust. And there's got to be 50 hangars, maybe something like that. And it's just huge. And you can have the run of the place. There's 2 miles of runway. So I ended up going a little over 100 miles an hour in my car down the runway just because you can, I had to do it. So, I took tons of pictures and all that good stuff. But then went back to the hotel, took a nap, and I was coming back at night, to see if I could observe anything. So my first stop when I got on base.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. My first stop when I got on base was to go to the runway area. That's where some significant sightings occurred. So I wanted to go there myself. It was drizzling that night, so there was some cloud cover. But other than that, I had an unobstructed view of the night sky. So I just kind of parked in the middle of the runways, shut everything off. It's probably 11:30 at night, something like that. And I'm just waiting and watching and waiting and watching. About an hour and a half or so goes by. The rain hitting the windows is starting to sound like white noise. I'm getting a headache. So and nothing's happening. So I start the car and get out. And at the time I was smoking. I've since quit. So thank you very much. That's been a struggle. But anyway, I step out to have a cigarette. And as I'm smoking, it sounds like I hear somebody walking up the runway. And I'm like, what? And it was weird, though. They take a few steps and then stop. And I was like, that's weird. So I walked to the front of the car to see if I could, towards where I was hearing it. And I'm just straining to see, and I'm straining to hear if that's even a thing. And I'm just listening, and I can hear, a few steps and then nothing, a few steps and then nothing. And I'm like, what is that? And then I realized it's my intermittent windshield wipers.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my goodness, I'm my imagination's getting the better of me. So I decide to move. I go to a different area, and it's where the radar tower is. So now I'm parked in the parking lot of the radar tower. And again, I'm looking at the sky and all that good stuff. And I've shut the lights off, but I haven't shut the car off. Like I had just arrived. And so I'm looking to my left. I look to my right. I look to my left again. And as I'm coming back looking to my right, boom, there's a light in the sky right above me. I'm like, whoa, like what? And I'm just human in that moment, Rob. Like I have this gear next to me, night vision cameras, some other stuff. And I'm not thinking about any of it. I'm just like looking at this light in the sky. I mean, that's all it is. But giving the stories of the area and what I'm there for, and to actually see it, I'm like, oh my God.
Hell, so plus the fact it was raining, plus the fact that you're right at the radar station, the history of Loring Air Force Base. Wow.
Yeah.
I've got goosebumps listening.
So I look down and I'm holding my cell phone and I'm like, whoa, in a huff, I like get the camera going and I start recording it. And I record, 15, 20 seconds of this light in the sky. As I'm recording it, I get the dumb idea that I want to drive closer to it. So I move the car about 5 feet, and there's this, the light does this weird flickering type of thing, and then it like blinks out. And I was like, oh my God, but I caught all of that on camera, and it's on my YouTube channel. You can do a search for Nomar Slevik or Nomar Slevik Loring UFO, something like that if you want to see it. But to see it on its own, it's just a light in the sky that disappears, it could be anything, and really it could be. So what I saw was a UFO at Loring Air Force Base, quite literally a UFO. But again, you put the history together, just all those things you were saying, what I just said, you put it all together, and it's this puzzle, and it's not the whole picture. But you have a lot of pieces where you can kind of see maybe what it's going to be. And that one is one that's keeping me, scratching my head still, and I like to, meet with witnesses and tell these stories in these books and the documentary to, like, here's what I found of the puzzle. What do you think it looks like?
Sure.
I'm not here to claim to be an expert. I'm not here to say extraterrestrials are real. I'm just saying weird things happen. People are seeing it, and I want to document it for historical record. And I want as many people to check it out that are interested. I think it's important information.
How many UFO hotspots would you say there are in the Northeast?
Oh boy, there's maybe 4 I can think of off the top of my head. But what really is a hotspot? Is it because there was a flap there, or are there all these weird, under the full paranormal umbrella things happening? And there are a few places like that in the Northeast. Of course, there's the Bridgewater Triangle. There's a place in the book that I coined the term the Somerset Triangle. It's not really a triangle. It's like 200 square mile area, and it's kind of central western Maine a little bit, but it's this area where there's been potentially up to 800 or 1,000 reports there. And I say potentially because when I've talked to MUFON, when I've talked to Peter Davenport at New Fork, we've all surmised that for every UFO that does go reported to one of these organizations, there's probably 10 or 20 or even more that go unreported. So to know that there's like 400 to 600 UFOs reported in that 200 square mile area, you're probably looking at maybe 800, 1,000, 1,200 that have occurred in that area, and it's a weird spot. It's a weird spot.
So how many would you guesstimate are seen over the period of a year in that spot?
Oh my goodness, over the course of a year, given the estimation of the non-reported, I mean, thousands. People see UFOs all the time. Now, what happens, especially when you go through these MUFON reports, or you're reading some of these little quips in newspapers or radio stations, their online presence has really beefed up, and they have like little news plugs as well. And a lot of these stories are people seeing lights in the sky, and the radio station or the newspaper is reporting it as like a UFO/extraterrestrial encounter. But when you really are reading hundreds of these, thousands of these,
right,
you're like, okay, they most likely misidentified something. Obviously, that's not the case in every case, but more often than not, people are misidentifying things. It could have been a drone. It could have been a planet. It could have been a helicopter. I don't know if you've ever seen a helicopter flying directly towards you in the sky when it has its nose light on, but it looks like a wobbling, hovering UFO until it finally banks or something, you know?
Right.
So you never know what you're seeing out there. Are they UFOs? Absolutely. Are they extraterrestrial? Probably not.
How many witnesses did you speak to about their experiences while researching your book, Otherworldly Encounters?
Quite a few. To put a number on it, I don't know, 100 maybe, something like that. But that's in all courses of communication.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's Facebook messages, that's emails, that's in person, that's phone calls. And one thing, at the very least, about Mainers, I don't mean to speak for everybody here in Maine, and I'm not speaking for everybody in Maine. However, we are generalized as like reserved people, a reserved population. We don't want people thinking we're lunatics over seeing something crazy, so people are reluctant to share their stories. So what I want to offer them is a non-judgmental ear. I'm an open-minded skeptic. I'm going to ask questions like, are you sure it couldn't have been blah, blah, blah? And more often than not, they're like, yeah, you're right. It could have been that. I didn't even think of that. So it's not necessarily case closed,
Mm-hmm.
but I might move on from that story, and not write about it,
Yeah, I fully understand, and I agree with you that a large number of the UFOs that people put in the same category as ET are later identified. They really have nothing to do with the space traveling UFOs.
Sure.
But I think the media has certainly played into that scenario along with Hollywood.
Absolutely. Especially since December of 2017 when all that stuff came out about the aerial threat program that the government had, and more people than ever are talking about it.
All right, Nomar, please stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exo Nation, Nomar Slevik is our special guest this hour. His Facebook page is facebook.com/Nomar Slevik author. That's Nomar Slevik author. We'll both be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And to find out about the programming we have available for you 24/7, 365 on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. And we're coming to you around the world tonight on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, iHeartRadio, X-Zone Broadcast Network, and on Simul Radio. And to find out about the X-Zone TV channel on Simul Radio TV, simply go to www.simultv.com. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is Nomar Slevik. He is a professionally published author living in Bangor, Maine. His first book, UFOs Over Maine, was released in 2014 through Schiffer Publishing. His latest book, Otherworldly Encounters, was released in July of this year through Llewellyn Worldwide Publishing. He wrote and produced the documentary Abducted New England, which will be featured on VIDI Space this year. Slevik meets with eyewitnesses, travels to anomalous sites, and conducts investigations. His investigations include the Mothman of Knox County and Loring Air Force Base. Joining me now from Bangor, Maine, a city I'm well acquainted with, is Nomar Slevik. And Nomar, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thanks so much for having me on, Rob. It is certainly an honor. Thank you.
Well, it's great having you with us, my friend. I'm very well familiar with Bangor, Maine, because for many years when we would drive from Montreal down to St. John, New Brunswick, we would take the, what's it called, the Skyway? And we'd stop in Bangor, Maine, and that's where our lunch stop was. So I love Bangor, Maine.
That's awesome.
Hey, listen, why did you write Otherworldly Encounters?
Well, that's a good question. I'm fascinated by all things paranormal.
Yeah.
And New England in general has a long history of hauntings, Sasquatch, and other cryptids such as the Dover Demon. There's even been dogman sightings. Actually spoke to a dogman witness about 2 months ago from Maine. And obviously tons of extraterrestrial encounters. So I love my home state, and I figured if all of this is getting reported in my own backyard, what better place to start and then stay in for a little while, you know?
Now, where does your interest in the paranormal come from?
Well, I think that can be traced back to the catalyst of it all. We're talking 35, 36 years ago. So I think that's like 82, 83. I was 4 or 5 years old, and I had a sighting in Fort Kent. And Fort Kent, I'm sure, as you know, is at the tip of Maine.
Yep.
Can literally throw a rock and hit Canada. And I was sound asleep one night. A loud clap of thunder woke me up, and I could start hearing the tapping of rain hitting my windows. And then I saw a flash of light. So I was like, ooh, a thunder and lightning storm. So I kneeled up on my bed and I watched the storm. And after a moment or so, I saw this thick lightning bolt penetrate a cloud. I know that sounds weird, but if I were to ask you to draw a lightning bolt, you'd probably draw this thick, jagged yellow line, or maybe think of the charging indicator on your smartphone.
Yep.
And even at that age, I knew that you could only see lightning for like a very little amount of time. But it stayed there, hovered there, if you will. I kept hearing booms. There were these electrical arcs coming off of it, and I eventually drifted back off to sleep. I then woke up in the morning, went to the bathroom. When I was walking back to my room, I could see out my bedroom windows, and the lightning bolt was still there. I ran downstairs. I got my dad. I brought him up to my room to show him, and it was gone. I tried explaining what I saw, but he was kind of like, yeah, as if to say, you know, like, what are you talking about, buddy?
Overactive imagination of a young man.
Right, yeah. Exactly. But I think I must have been pretty insistent, because he did tell me that it did not rain the night before. So after hearing that, I actually got pretty scared because I didn't know what the hell it was. So about 2 weeks later, my mom and dad dragged me and my sister out of bed to witness the Northern Lights. And that was another, you know, phenomenon that I'm viewing in the sky at such a young age. And it's the only time I've ever seen it. And it was gorgeous and strange. And I think those two things taught me at a young age that the world is friggin' mysterious and weird and fascinating. But I was kind of hooked, but still scared. So I think that's the catalyst. And I also think it was the first time I ever saw a UFO.
Since having that first encounter when you were a young man, have you had any UFO sightings since then?
Yeah, I've had about 10 other sightings in my lifetime. I don't know if seeing, you know, two weird sky anomalies at such a young age subconsciously allows me to look up more than most. But I definitely see some weird stuff. So I've seen, I tell people I've seen 11 UFOs in my lifetime.
My goodness.
UFOs are in fact real, and I can prove it. Proving it is simply by saying what I've seen are unidentified flying objects. Does not mean they're extraterrestrial. You know, in the 50s and 60s and like solidified in the 70s, UFOs become synonymous with extraterrestrial, and it's typically not the case. Out of the 11 sightings, there's probably 2 where I'm still really left scratching my head. I'm like, ugh, I don't know what it is, you know? The other stuff could have been something else. I just haven't been able to identify them, you know?
Why do you think society, the majority of society, always associates a UFO with extraterrestrial visitation?
I would probably say pulp culture. You know, I'm no expert on any of this stuff, but probably pulp culture has helped with that. I mean, look at all the sci-fi movies from the 50s, 60s, and obviously the 70s.
True.
When Spielberg kind of hit it out of the park with Close Encounters, and then you kind of get into my demographic when E.T. came out, and it's become an accepted form. You see something weird in the sky that's flying, well, it's probably E.T.
Yeah, and E.T. made it socially acceptable to give somebody the finger as well.
True.
Those 2 UFO sightings that you yourself have had that keep you scratching your head wondering what it was, can you explain them to us or tell us about them?
Yeah. One of them happened in 2007, and it was closer to southern Maine, the Freeport area, home of L.O. Bean, for any of your listeners that are familiar. Yep. And it was actually kind of interesting the way it happened. My roommate at the time, and still is to this day, is a skeptic. So they came home one evening and like ran up the stairs and like slammed the door and came inside and were like, "Yo, there's something like weird outside. You got to go check it out. I'm sure it's right up your alley," you know, something like that. So I'm like, "What?" So I ran outside, and hovering over the house that's across the street, so it's probably a little, you know, like 150 yards away from me. Hovering over the house were these 2 red lights on one side, and then up higher in the middle was a white light. They weren't blinking. It was completely silent, and it was hovering. So I stared at it for a while. When I extended my arm out, it took the entire length of my thumb to cover the object. So that said to me that it was high and large or pretty low. And I had a Nokia phone at the time, 2007. I don't even know if there were smartphones then, maybe, but I didn't have one anyway. So I had a Nokia phone, took a picture of it, and all you can see is really just like a red streak with some black behind it. So that wasn't much help. But I'm staring at the thing, and I would say probably after like 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes, it then diagonally moves up. So it ascends a little bit and then hovers again just for a moment, and then it takes off on like a level trajectory parallel to Route 1 in Freeport. So at that point, I like fumbled for my keys. I'm like, I'm going to follow this thing. So as soon as I hit the road, I lost sight of it. I'm mad at myself for taking my eyes off of it. But less than half a mile up the road is a field with a clearing, a clear view of the sky. So I pulled in there and was ready to, have a close encounter, and it never showed up. But the reason it seems, I still scratch my head on it, is it seemed large. It seemed close enough that I would have heard it. Nothing was blinking on it like you would come to associate with some sort of a military or civilian type of aircraft.
Sure.
And at the time, drones, at least the way we know them commercially now, were not commercially viable really at the time. Doesn't mean it couldn't have been some other experimental drone, but that one keeps me scratching my head because of that,
All right, we're going to come back from a commercial break shortly, and when we do, I'd like to hear about the second encounter that you have that still has you scratching your head. The next donation, our guest this hour is Nomar Slevik, and you can find out more about Nomar on his Facebook page, facebook.com/Nomar Slevik author, and that's NOMAR SLEVIK AUTHOR. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, and on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. The X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we come to you Monday through Friday from midnight until 5 a.m. Eastern, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network and our broadcast affiliates and partners around the world. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation,
Keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.